Thank you. It's 10:55. Just want to make sure that we have a quorum with our members. I see. Mr. Santos, are you there?
Oh, boy.
He's changing a diaper.
Exactly. How about Mr. Oakham?
I'm here. I like that, Vivian.
And then
But
Mr. Robbins?
Vivian, I don't think he knows how to do that.
Shut
Probably not.
He's like me.
Do we have Mr. Robbins?
Yes, we do. And Mr. or Chair Kehoe, if I can just do a quick test with Mr. Robbins. Mr. Robbins, at this time, if you can go ahead and enter *6 to unmute yourself. Okay.
So we need either Mr. Robbins, Mr. Santos, and then I'll have Ms. Gray be a voting member.
Okay.
Bonnie, are you working on Mr. Robbins?
Yes, I'm
Okay.
calling him now.
Okay, we got Herman. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start the meeting. We'll have Ms. Gray be a voting member until Mr. Robbins joins. So we'll go ahead and move along with the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of March 3rd, 2021. And I'm going to need a motion.
Chair Kehoe, we need to make the announcements.
Oh, yes. Okay. Ms. Borp, go ahead.
Okay. This meeting is being conducted virtually, so I will do a roll call of the trustees to confirm attendance. Mr. Knox,
Here.
Mr. Santos,
Present.
Mr. Bernstein,
Here.
Miss Gray, Mr. Oakham,
Here.
Mr. Moore,
Here.
Mr. Robbins, Miss Zapanta, Mr. Pryor,
Here.
Mr. Harris, Chair Kehoe.
Present.
Staff participating in the meeting include CEO Santos Kryman, AEO JJ Popowich, Chief Counsel Stephen Rice. From the management team, Bernie Buenaflor, Alan Cochran, Kathy Delano, Cynthia Martinez, Carly Natoya, CISO Bob Schottfeld. Other staff, Annette Clary, Elsie Gutierrez, and Maggie Luong. Trustees, if you have a comment or question, please use the Zoom chat option. At this time, we ask all meeting participants to mute your mics until you are ready to speak, and we may now proceed with the agenda.
Great, thank you. So we'll go ahead and ask again for a motion for the regular meeting of March 3rd meeting minutes.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved in second. Let's go ahead and do a roll call.
Mr. Santos,
Aye.
Mr. Oakham,
Aye.
Mr. Robbins, Miss Gray,
Aye.
Chair Kehoe.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. That brings us to the next item, which is public comment. I haven't received any requests to speak. And I'm assuming I'm not hearing from staff that we have anybody. So
There's nothing.
perfect. So let's move along to our reports. We have a number of reports. Just for timing purposes from staff, I have item B, C, and D. We received memos that said information only, but I saw presentations on each of them. So I'm just confirming, are we going to have presentations on all three of those?
That would be up to the committee's preference. We're available to do it if you wish to do so.
Okay, so we'll take them one at a time. So let's go ahead and then JJ, if you can take it with the operations briefing.
I
That's
will
item A.
brief in consideration of the number of items we have on the agenda. So you have my operations briefing in front of you. There are two things I really wanted to call attention to. One is the certificate project. Historically, LACERA has required members to submit a physical copy of certain government issued certificates like birth certificates, death certificates, marriage certificates. Some of these things are priceless from an emotional attachment, and some are hard to get. Historically, if marriage certificates sometimes can be very hard to get. And so there's been a problematic, and it's always been a concern for members to submit the original ones. And then especially during the pandemic, they mail it to us, we have to mail it back to them. So we took the proactive approach to this, worked with our legal office, and we will be accepting copies of these certificates. We're getting ready to launch this change in process. And so this is a huge step forward, I think, for service aspect. Members will be able to submit a copy of a certificate with an attestation saying that this is an unaltered copy of the original. And then there was a request from Mr. Moore several months ago for member demographic information, and we now have ethnicity, which was the big piece of the member demographic information that we didn't have. We now have that, and I actually have a report available on ethnicity, which I put into a memo and share with the board, with the trustees. And that will conclude the report unless there are any questions.
Thank you, JJ. Any questions from the memo? Seeing none, let's go ahead and move on to item B, which is the vacant position and hiring plan by Dr. Natoya. We have a memo as well as a presentation. I will leave it up to the committee if we would like a presentation and a discussion regarding the current efforts. If you like the presentation, please speak up. If not, we will move on. Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Kehoe?
Yes, Mr. Santos.
Too slow in getting the microphone up. Yeah, if you don't mind, a brief presentation, because this is a little concerning to me that we have so many vacancies. And I know we have a plan, but it's just really disturbing, especially in the IT area. And I appreciate the fact that we're going to be discussing that in later on in another memo. But if you can just, I'm looking more to why are we carrying so many vacant positions? Yes, that goes to Mr. Kramer. I know you just got here.
I can give you a brief overview. So the IT positions, there are a lot of, and there's another presentation that we'll get into more detail. I think that the slowing of our plans to hire really was a result of the pandemic and some of the concerns that or some of the challenges that we had. So for example, on our retirement benefit staffing, there was no way to proctor an exam remotely. And we've always done it on site or in a different location where we had individuals that were proctoring exams in person. And so we were working with the county to figure out how to do those exams remotely, and the county hasn't figured it out yet. So we're, as part of this plan, are moving forward and going to do something a little different so that we can bring on those new folks on the member services side and on the benefit side. We also were held up in terms of promotions. So we want to promote individuals first so that we can hire individuals behind them at the entry-level positions. We think from a training perspective, it makes more sense to do that because we wanted to have one large class as opposed to multiple classes over a protracted period of time. The IT, there were a lot of issues that we were facing during the pandemic that we felt we needed to bring resources in immediately. And so as a result, we hired temporary staff to fill some of the gaps in our security area, some of our specialized services that we needed in our Outlook, for example, Teams, and in securing our all of the Microsoft applications that we've purchased up out of Office 365. And so that's basically the reasons why we had delayed the hiring. Now that we've gotten through the pandemic, so to speak, we've stabilized the work environment. Remote work seems to be working in specific areas very well. In other areas, it hasn't been working quite the way we would like. As a result, our document processing center, for example, we've elected and required all of them to come on site now, separated by specific floors. We've taken a look at our training for retiree healthcare. We're going to move away from requiring our retiree healthcare folks to be trained as part of the core training process and have a very specific training program for retiree healthcare, which is going to be between a 6 to 12 week period of time, so that we can bring them into production sooner rather than later to address some workload issues. So that, from a general perspective, is one of the issues that we were challenged with moving forward. And
Yeah,
we
the
also,
big question, if I may, and excuse me, Mr. Kryman, and through the chair, I was kind of looking more to a discussion about the issues with the county. I know in the past, I don't know, 5 years ago, whatever the time was, but we had issues, or at least that was reported to us, that, you know, the current salary or the salary at that time would preclude us from getting the right skill set for IT. And there was a dispute with the county. That has been resolved with regards to those positions. Where are we? Are we able to hire now? Because I did notice that there was so many people that got hired for the IT division. So if you can enlighten us on that, I'd really appreciate it.
those issues in terms of the disagreements between ourselves and the CEO have not been resolved in terms of the IT. What we've elected to do as part of this hiring plan is to move forward with trying to recruit individuals in the IT arena based on the salaries that were provided. And then we'll determine at that particular point in time whether or not we can hire the talent that we need at those particular levels, skill levels that have been provided. Once we do that, we will evaluate it and then come back to the board of retirement to talk about plans moving forward and how we're going to approach not negotiations, but how we're going to approach an increase in salaries that we think are required in order for us to recruit the talent that we need in IT and in all areas for that matter. We have some succession planning issues that we have to address as well in the legal section that's going to require some discussion as part of our budget. So I have not engaged the CEO directly on every single project, every single position, but we've had broad discussions about how to move forward with filling these particular positions at those particular levels. So I guess I'm hopeful that answers your question sufficiently.
It does. I mean, I just want to make sure that, you know, because at one point, again, several years ago, we were discussing, evaluating whether or not we needed to go to court to force the county, because we have full authority in terms of the salaries and positions that we determine, the staff on the board determines is necessary, and the board of supervisors don't have the authority legally. So I kind of eventually at some point want to get to that and figure out, do we still have a dispute with the county? And if yes, what are we going to do?
I can tell you that that particular option is still on the table. I have not eliminated anything. Everything is still on the table. Whether we have to go to court to exercise our authority is something that we're still considering for the IT positions as well as some of the other positions as well. So I don't want to give you the impression that we're not considering it, but we are considering all of our options, including perhaps going to court to exercise our authority.
Thank you.
Okay.
And what I'm hearing is that we're going to proceed with the county approved salary structure for these items and attempt to fill them. And then if we are unable to fill them, then we're going to come back as a board, discuss it, and determine our next steps. It sounds like that's the plan.
Yes, that is correct. I think that would put us in the best position in terms of testing the CEO's objections to the salary levels that were requested.
And was that the ultimate direction from the board? Did we discuss that as a board to give you that direction, or is this a staff position moving forward?
I think it's a staff position moving forward.
So should this be best addressed with full approval of the board, or should we leave things as they are? Because I see I see it, and I'm not necessarily disagreeing with your position. I'm talking more about the roles and responsibilities of both of us. I see it as the board gave direction to proceed with the hiring plan 2 years ago with the salary structure that was approved. We went to the county, we had our disagreement, and we then are proceeding to go with what the county is suggesting rather than our board discussing it and determining the next steps. So I don't know if that's the correct way going forward, since ultimately I would have questions such as, have we done salary structures studies? I know we have in the past. How did that look? Et cetera, et cetera. So there's a number of questions that I don't think we need to slow down our hiring process and cause any more of a logjam. But this perhaps should have been something that we talked about a few months ago, and ultimately gave you the full authority to proceed with that. Because ultimately, the way I look at it, and as I'm saying, I might not necessarily disagree with the way going forward. The way I look at it is, we've essentially received direction from the County of Los Angeles how to proceed, and we're proceeding as they directed us. And then if that doesn't work, then we're going to go back to look at it. And I don't know if I necessarily agree with that position without having information in front of me to show me one way or the other.
I don't view it as us acquiescing to the county's requirements or desires or decisions. I think that my concern is that I do see my item control on a weekly basis. I see that we are, because of attrition and because of our inability to hire or issue the exams, that there is a backlog. And so I need to try to get these people on board. We're expending a considerable amount of money using temp agencies to fill these particular high-level positions and these important technical positions. And so I need to try to get away from that. We go into a salary study would take quite a bit of time because there are a lot of positions. I reviewed the salary studies that were prepared 3 or 4 years ago. I have a lot of questions about it that, quite frankly, I haven't been able to get coherent answers on those studies at this point in time. So if we can certainly have a discussion in closed session to talk about our options moving forward with the county, if that's the desire of the the committee.
I think my concern is this, is that if we proceed with attempting to fill some of these positions that are highly technical positions at lower salary structures than what you see at industry standards, then we may end up filling them, and we may not be filling them with the best options out there, right? Salary does drive recruiting efforts, not the sole thing, but something to look at. So the board approved a structure going forward, and regardless of the semantics of what we want to call it, ultimately what the board asked for 2 years ago did not go through, and we're now going with a lower salary structure as we proceed to try and fill some of these highly technical positions. So, and my concern is not necessarily that we're doing that, because that might actually, there might be justification. What I'm concerned about is that the board didn't give that direction. That was not a direction from the board. So we didn't have a discussion about it, and ultimately we're proceeding with that direction. And I would think that it would be much better if we're all on the same page and we're all speaking the same language and we're all standing in unison on this. So I definitely recommend that you bring this back to discuss with your actual plan and how you're going to do it, the salary structures you've selected, all that. When I'm hearing that you have concerns about the salary discussion from years ago, then those are concerns that are my concerns, right? And all of our the board's concerns. So these are things that I think we need to sit down and discuss and put together as a board, and ultimately give you the authority to proceed with that. And there are ways to go about doing that to make sure that we don't delay the process, and perhaps bringing it directly to the board to the discussion rather than the OOC or whatever the case is. Perhaps pumping some brakes on some other issues and focusing entirely on this for the time being, prioritizing positions over other positions, those type of things. So really, it's a 50-50 staff and board carry as far as you putting together the work and you bring it to the board to discuss.
Okay, we can certainly do that. I think that the purpose of the two reports that are before you today is to get some direction, some guidance in terms of what our next steps are. And so I hear you loud and clear that, and I agree with you 100% that we all need to be in lockstep moving forward on what path we're going to take to fill these particular vacancies. And so we will do our level best to get this before the board in May, the full board, so we can get some direction on how we want to proceed with the hirings.
Perfect.
Okay.
I'll definitely open it up to the rest of the committee and
Yeah, I have
other
a question.
trustees that are.
Question, Sean.
Yes, Mr. Holcomb.
Yeah, as I remember, when we wanted these positions, it was cheaper to have the positions than to pay the part-time or go out and pay what we're paying. Is that still the case, Mr. Kryman, that we are paying too much money for the hiring going through agencies at this time than that we would be if we had the salaries that we approved?
So I think it depends on the position. I think the higher level positions, for example, we are definitely paying more going through a temp agency for those positions. There are other positions where I think it's a wash, but I think as a general rule, going with a consultant for long term is more expensive in the long run.
Well, can we not show that to the CEO? I mean, she's got to understand numbers. So you're sitting down and saying, hey, this is what it's costing us, and this is what we want to do. And we, by having permanent employees, it's better for the organization rather than having temporary employees that cost us more money. To me, it's pretty logical. I don't understand why they would, because we can hire the temps all we want at a higher fee, but we can't hire permanent people that would, we'd have the best results for the organization. I don't understand their thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some unfortunate politics with that, where ISD on the county side has a majority of the technical expertise, and there's consequences to us having higher salaries, i.e. we take better, some of their staff, or we force them into paying more salaries. So those are clearly things, and I wish that we could just simply decouple it, because we're two separate systems completely as far as what our goals are. I mean, we are a financial service industry at the end of the day, and we need some of the highest level of security and stuff. And of course, they would make the same argument on their end, but we shouldn't be going back and forth. We should be supporting one another. I think we can get there.
Yes.
But I think that's a discussion. My point is that that's a discussion we need to have before we start jumping down the road on filling items. But
Okay.
any additional questions, comments from the committee and board?
Yes, quickly, Mr. Chair. And the other thing to remember, Mr. Kryman, is that at least the county was making the argument the last time that because they were in collective bargaining with the different unions, specifically SEIU, who I believe represent the admin tech unit, but that's where a lot of the IT classifications fit in. So my understanding is that SEIU is going to be going into bargaining this summer with the county. So just I'm raising that issue so you be aware of it, and let's be prepared to tackle that issue if it does come up.
Yeah, I appreciate the heads up, and I do agree with Mr. Kehoe that we have to figure out how to decouple LACERA's needs with the county's needs. A lot of the arguments that the county is using, I don't particularly agree with them. Quite frankly, the argument that we're going to be stealing their talent is a red herring. It doesn't make any sense. What I told the CEO representatives is welcome to a small department. Because when I was the director of beaches and harbors, I used to argue all the time that they were taking the talent away from me and going to the sheriff department or health because there were greater opportunities there. No one seemed to care at that point. And so it's the same argument. And for some reason, they have not been willing to look at it, to decouple the issues. They look at it from the county's perspective, and they look at it from size. And we are definitely not as big as the County of Los Angeles, but we are a large financial institution, like Mr. Kehoe mentioned. And so we need to figure out how to decouple it. And I have had conversations with FISA directly, with the CEO of the county, about this particular issue. Have not had the opportunity to talk about salaries just yet, but that's on the horizon. I've been focusing in on trying to get the hiring plan in place, getting prepared to talk with you all, because I feel like I need to talk with you, or at least present you what the plan is moving forward before I go back to the county and talk about what path or what strategy or what we need moving forward is. So there is an opportunity, though. All of the folks that were there 3 years ago are no longer there. And so it's been a lot of re-education on their part, trying to get up to speed. There's a lot of old documents and the old files that they look at, and they look at it and believe that is written in stone. And we're trying to convince them that it's a new ball game, and we're just different. And we have plenary authority to hire the folks that we need in order to administer the fund and the investments of the fund on behalf of our members.
Thank you. So in light of the discussion we just had, item B and C, we will go ahead and put that back to staff for a game plan and bringing that to the full board. And it sounds like it'll be a discussion in May at the full board. So I appreciate staff's work on that and our ongoing discussions. This is exactly what we need to do as an organization. So I appreciate that. That brings us now to item D, which is a information only memo that we received with an attached presentation from Bernie. And is there any member of the committee or member of the board that is requesting a full presentation on the information? I am seeing none. I thank you very much for the information, and we're going to move on to item E, which is mass communication to members. And we have a discussion by Ms. Martinez and Mr. Cochran.
All right. It's still good morning. Good morning, Chair Kehoe and trustees. My name is Cynthia Martinez, and I'm Chief of Communications. I'm here today to discuss how LACERA uses various medias to provide timely information and education to our members and survivors. Communications distributed an email on behalf of the Investment Office to all members with a confirmed email address, roughly 95,000 members. During a Board of Investment meeting on March 20th, some concern was raised regarding this email distribution and how it might exclude some members. I want to assure the board and the members and survivors, I want to assure the boards that the members and survivors continue to receive important information by traditional printed and mail media and can also be supplemented by digital communications. We use several means of distributing information to our members. Mailed communications are by letters, newsletters, that's the spotlight and the postscript, automatic direct receipt inserts, warrant messages, and mass mailings. And on the digital side, they are via LACERA.com and mass email distribution. These vacancies or these vehicles of distribution are mixed and matched depending on the urgency of the message. Communication works with the executive office and the management team to determine the urgency. In regard to the investment office letter, the team designated the message was informative and not time sensitive. So communications sent the email. We posted it online and also it is scheduled to appear in our June newsletters. But when a message is time sensitive, we use a multimedia approach to ensure as many members receive the message as quickly as possible. An example is the annual withholding notice sent in January. We wanted to be sure we communicated to the members prior to the 2021 tax filing season. So for the mail communications used, we created an insert and placed it in the ADR mailer. We included it as a January warrant message, and we placed a message in the March Spotlight newsletter. And the digital communications used, we posted a message on the homepage of LACERA.com and also sent an email to the retired members. Excuse me. We understand the importance of reaching all of our members, and therefore we are continually working to increase our digital footprint. In ways that we're doing that, we've started what we're calling the My LACERA campaign. It's a multimedia approach is being used to reach as many members as possible to secure email addresses and cell phone numbers. And then we have LACERA.com redesign, which I recently presented to you. We will be reaching out to all of our members via our electronic and printed communications to highlight our feature-rich, responsive new website. While we are confident the new design alone will attract members, we intend to retain their engagement through frequently updated, relevant, and easy to find content. Having the advantage of analytics going forward will also help us to better target content toward the intended audiences. In addition, outreach by benefits and member services is also taking place. Many of our response letters encourage members to log in and upload their documents through the My LACERA portal. Member Services promotes My LACERA as the easiest and fastest way to submit documents and also urges members to communicate through the Secure Message Center. Our outreach webinars and seminars include a section promoting the benefits of registering for My LACERA. And our retirement benefit specialists include a discussion about registering for LACERA in their one-on-one retirement counseling sessions. With these efforts taking place to increase our digital footprint, we are compiling data to assess the effectiveness of our campaigns and promotions to continually enhance our efforts where needed. As far as the emails, we're determining how many open rates or the email open rates and click-throughs. And then with LACERA.com, as I mentioned earlier, the analytical tools will give us the opportunity to study website traffic, to customize features, content, services, and campaigns to help our members understand and assess their benefits. We are excited about leveraging our increased technological capabilities to strategically reach our audiences using this multimedia approach. We look forward to updating you on our efforts and progress in the future. This concludes my presentation, so thank you. And if there are any questions.
Great, thank you. Excellent presentation. I see Ms. Gray has a comment.
I just want to thank you so much for this presentation. As you all know, well, maybe you don't know, I've been jumping up and down and screaming about how I totally dislike institutional green on our LACERA.com page. And I'm so happy to see that we're working towards improving it. So thank you. I mean, it just makes me feel better because I feel bad when I refer a lot of our members, they have questions and I refer them either to LACERA.com or LACERA. Now, LACERA to me is done very well. It is attractive to the members. I love the colors. It's just done very, very well. So if we get the LACERA.com, at least, you know, somewhat like LACERA, it'll be great and it will attract new members. So thank you, Cynthia.
Well, thank you for that. We are very excited about the launch and it's fast approaching here in July. But we definitely see the benefit for our members and we're excited as a communications staff to be able to utilize it to really reach our members in a different way than our current LACERA.com. So again, thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And I don't want to lose the thing that actually caused us to have this discussion, which was the concerns about the email notifications. I know that came from the BOI on sending out important communication solely via electronic means. And I mean, I personally, I have 3 email accounts: a LACERA account, a Sheriff's Department account, and a account from my personal account. I get hundreds of emails a day. So it's definitely a challenge and I understand that. So I'm glad that there is a focus on looking at prioritizing how we communicate. And I think that that's definitely a staff issue to continue to evaluate when we use email to communicate or when we send hard letters and things. So I appreciate the effort and I do agree as we get as we improve the online experience, I think you're going to see more and more people go into it, more and more email addresses getting added, and that makes our communication even more powerful. So appreciate that. Any additional comments or questions from anyone on the committee regarding this? I see none, so let's go ahead and move on to our semi-annual report of member services. We have a memo from Mr. Cochran, and I'll start off by saying that this was an excellent memo, very detailed, and it's very insightful as a trustee to review this and see what's going on and what some of the focus is. So I like this exercise, and I'm looking forward to the brief presentation from you. And you're muted.
Thank you very much, Trustee Keough, and thank you, committee members. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today about the last 6 months in member services. Member services, of course, is an important component of LACERA, and I wanted to update you with all the activities and all the additional services we're providing to our members. Over the last 6 months, I would say the overall theme of member services has been collaboration as well as innovation. And by that, I mean that this is the first time that we have had a pandemic, March Madness, as well as training of new specialists during a pandemic, remote training of specialists. So these are a couple of firsts for us. And I just want to give you a little deeper dive into what we've accomplished and also touch upon some of the challenges that we've encountered as well. For our new specialists, in 1st of October, we welcomed 9 new specialists from the core benefits training class. They had completed 1 year of training and were released to member services the 1st of October. And just as a point of perspective, these new specialists began their class October of 2019. And about 5.5 months into the in-office training, the pandemic hit. So it really was a test of their character, their fortitude, and working under the guidance of quality assurance. Quality assurance was able to continue their training. Some of it at that time was on the red-blue team fashion, and then ultimately remotely, so that they all were able to develop their skill sets out of the core benefits training class, and then were released to us. So when they're released to us, they were prepared to begin their call center operations training. And this training is typically about a 3-month training, the initial stage, so that we introduce the new specialist to the structure of member services. I'll call it the legacy manner of training would be in-office training sessions, conferences, classroom work, role playing in the office. And then while working in the call center, the initial steps would involve having a new specialist sitting next to either their supervisor or a veteran specialist. And the training for a new call center specialist essentially goes from having the new specialist listen to the veteran, work with a member, will then move to navigating around the desktop applications that are to use, including the workspace, the member services OIs, and other applications. Ultimately, the new specialist would be speaking with the member, with the veteran or supervisor tandem person operating the applications, until ultimately the new specialist is speaking to the member, interacting with their applications with the tandem person next to their side for support.
You muted again. Alan, you muted again.
Okay. We needed to figure out, how do we mirror that experience but do it remotely? We've never done this before, and I have to give complete, full shout out and credit to our call center supervisors who worked together and collaborated with our systems folks to find a way to do this. So by a creative use of our AWS Amazon Connect remote call center application, marrying that together with the Microsoft Teams application, we were able to essentially recreate the training process that we have used over the years. So we have a specialist who's in a remote location, let's say at their home. We have a veteran specialist at their home. And we created a way where both specialists could view the same desktop, could listen to the member, could speak to the member if they, whoever needed to speak to the member. They could speak with each other without the member hearing if they needed to consult together. so that we could go through that process that we were accustomed to doing when we trained specialists in the office. It was a very challenging exercise, and we were successful with it. So in the memo, it describes in a little bit more detail the 3 months of call center training that we put the new specialists through. And then the first of this year, right after New Year's, the new specialists were on their own, but with the close support of their supervisor, taking calls by themselves. That was a huge success for us, and a first for LACERA. The second aspect of what's happened over the last 6 months is our March Madness, our first March Madness during a pandemic. And a couple of steps that we took in preparation for the challenges that we were facing were that Retiree Healthcare and Member Services collaborated together to be able to provide more service to our members during the first part of the year for members who need to provide us with documentation for the Medicare B reimbursement. Generally, every January, we have a flood of individuals, of retirees coming into the Member Service Center to drop off their Medicare B reimbursement information. They may fax it in or mail it in. And so what we tried to do in the collaboration between Retiree Healthcare and Member Services is to essentially provide more services to our member, where Member Services could assist callers in the details of the documents that need to be submitted to Retiree Healthcare. We got more training in that area as a result of working with RHC. They provided us with that training. That prevented an increase of transfers over to Retiree Healthcare, freeing up retirement healthcare specialists to be able to work with members on other healthcare issues. And it also allowed an opportunity for member services specialists to spend time with our members and tutoring them on how to upload their Medicare B reimbursement documentation through My LACERA, their portal. And sometimes these calls were very lengthy, but I view it as an investment in our members and our survivors on how to upload these documents so that in the future they'll be more willing and comfortable with doing that as time goes by. So that,
Alan,
yes.
On that note, I do remember reading that in the memo, and I was going to ask you a
Yes.
couple of things. Have we planned on putting together like a tutorial video on how to do that? Maybe some sort of video series that would be easy enough, and in those upload areas would have a quick link on how to do it. Number one, and number two, have we considered having some sort of technical support number or group outside of the member services? Because I see our resources of our retirement benefits specialists are better used providing some retirement counseling rather than being technical support, whereas we can have some more, systems oriented people doing that.
Great questions. On the first point, the answer is yes. We have already created a tutorial on how to navigate through My LACERA and to do uploads. And once LACERA.com is released, that will be posted to LACERA.com. We have also developed a single topic webinar that we would like to roll out, addressing how to work with My LACERA. And the reason we're not yet conducting that single topic webinar just yet is because the first single topic webinar that we introduced during March Madness was on power of attorney, and there's been such a strong interest in that presentation. With resourcing, we haven't been able to move to the other presentations. But we're ready to go with that. As we're exiting March Madness, we're going to be addressing that. So we're ready to go on that topic. On the question of having a technical support line, I have had requests from specialists as a possibility. I'll defer to JJ with his knowledge as to whether or not that is something that is under consideration. My input on that would be we could do that. However, my preference would be that member services does that for a number of reasons in terms of the ability to interact with members. But once you do your technical aspect, then there's the questions that will follow, and having to switch members back and forth troubles me, but I'm open to the ideas. JJ, do you have some thoughts on that?
We haven't discussed it specifically. It's something we will discuss internally and see if it makes sense for us. I do like having the member services staff have that interaction, because inevitably once they get in, then they start asking their questions. There are some improvements we're talking about as far as resetting passwords and changing that process so that it's more automated with multi-factor identification processes, which would take some of the technical questions off the plate, maybe. But we'll take a look at that.
So does that answer your question, Trustee Keel?
Yes, and I wasn't necessarily advocating that. I just thrown it out there as a discussion point, and you both have very good points regarding that. We definitely want the member experience to be the focus. So I think you just have to analyze how much time is going to technical stuff and how many are single question things. So, but I'll defer that all to staff.
Okay, very good points. Further collaboration between member services and retiree healthcare occurred this March Madness when we introduced services, call center services on 9 Saturdays. In past years, what we have done during March Madness is to open the member service center on a number of different Saturdays during January, February, and March typically. And since the member service center remains closed for the safety of our staff and our members, we wanted to try to provide some other services on a Saturday basis. So Retiree Healthcare, Cassandra and I, we consulted together, worked together on this, and we went forward. This was very important. And again, as far as shout outs, I want to give a shout out to Cassandra and her team for stepping up to this, because for myself, I really wanted the Saturday experience for our members to be the exact same experience that they would receive in terms of the level of service as they would receive Monday through Friday. I didn't want to have half a team, kind of the JV team on Saturdays. When I call my dad's bank on a Saturday, I sometimes wonder, is that the top team that's taking the phone call on Saturdays, or is that kind of the starting team? I'm getting the full story. I didn't want that to happen, and Cassandra agreed. So we worked together to provide the exact same experience on Saturdays that a member would receive if they had called us during the week. And we also introduced some phone appointments on Saturdays. And if staffing would have allowed us to, we would have liked to have offered virtual appointments. And this was really a first test of this concept. It was successful, and I know that we touched a lot of members. When I reviewed the topics for the phone appointments, most of the topic was on retirement counseling, very robust conversations. So that was a new opportunity for us this year. And then, as I mentioned in our memo, we continued with our virtual appointments, which has become very successful. We've had more than 1,600 virtual appointments since October. We've had more than 700 phone appointments since October, and we learned that although we might try to reach out to our members to have a virtual appointment, not everybody is accustomed or able to do that or desiring to do that. Some folks would still like to have an appointment, but do it on a phone. So that's why we introduced the phone appointments. We also, as far as additional innovations with working together with admin services, Kimberly Hines and her team, we introduced the secured dropped-off mail slot. That's become quite popular because there are folks that still prefer to come in or come down to our offices and drop it into a slot. And right now on the LACERA.com, we have a notice to our members that that is available, and we do discuss this or mention it to our members when they call. So I think that will be growing in popularity even once we reopen.
Just a general question on that.
Yes.
So being in charge of all the detectives that do identity theft investigations in LA County, what's the security? I haven't been down there. I haven't seen it. Do we have some pretty significant security on that? Because if that Dropbox were to be accessed, that could be really bad.
Absolutely. The Dropbox currently, the drop of the mail goes currently into the member service center. And of course, the member service center is locked with cameras throughout the lobby and the member service center. When we do a reopening, we're going to have a secured lockbox, and it's document processing that does the pickup of these documents, and so they essentially manage the chain of custody for these documents. The slot on the side of the building is designed to be appropriate for in terms of height of anybody who may need to reach up, perhaps a wheelchair access or shorter, but it is designed where somebody's hand cannot get in there and a tool cannot get in there. It is monitored by the building folks. So I believe that we're very comfortable with the security on it.
I definitely recommend looking into some alternatives, such as like safety deposit drop-off boxes where you drop it directly into a secured safe type of thing. So maybe staff could take a look at that, consider it, look into that stuff, because this is yes, go ahead.
Yeah, that is the plan. Yes, the initial drop-off box didn't have it because it's locked and nobody's in that work area. But I just got I'd asked them to create a lock box that is locked so that when it drops in, nobody can get to it without the key. And that I just got the purchase order for that yesterday. So that will be coming shortly. That'll be in place before we open live. So by the time anybody is entering that area, it will be locked and secured so nobody can access it.
Perfect. Thank you.
And then additionally, as I've mentioned in the memo, Systems has provided us with an e-fax capability, which provides us with additional way to interact with our members. Been very successful since all of the call center staff and outreach staff are working remotely. And our webinars, we continue to offer a number of pre-retirement new hire webinars. As of this March Madness, we've offered more than 71 webinars to our members, rather than, since we're not able to do in-person presentations. And then we introduced the single topic webinars, as mentioned in the memo. The POA webinar was the first, very, very popular. I've listed just a few of the departments that we have interacted with so far. We are seeking out good contacts, helpful contacts for other departments. We would love to expand this out. It's a very timely topic with COVID, but it's also important at all times to be able to designate someone that can step in for the member in the event that you're incapacitated or a need should arise. Very, very important. We've received a great response to that. And as I mentioned, we have other single topic presentations ready to go. The other items I wanted to bring up is the challenges. So, we have encountered some real challenges. Some of those challenges have already been addressed in this meeting with the staffing, for instance, as Carly and Santos have pointed out, filling vacancies, anticipated vacancies, having appropriate staffing to serve our members is critical. And we anticipate offering a new class so that we can develop more retirement benefit specialists to replace those specialists that retire or promote into other areas. Another challenge that we encountered was the physical mail, just the handling of physical mail. And again, for another shout out, I'd like to shout out to Elsie Gutierrez, who oversees that operation. She has been phenomenal to work with. Over the months, she has been addressing the challenges that she's faced with the COVID pandemic. She has collaborated with member services because we have members calling about whether or not you received my mail, my documents, and so forth. She's been a great partner. I've learned from Elsie that document processing receives anywhere from 1 to 4 tubs of mail each day, and a tub holds up to 500 items of mail. So just a phenomenal flow of physical items that come into document processing. So we've worked together to be able to have a more prompt response to our members when we receive documents, and also to return those documents. And one initiative which will be helping not only our members with ease of doing business with us, but also help document processing is the initiative to accept certificates, copies of documents, rather than requiring the original and then having to return the original document to the member. So that's going to be very helpful in the future. The last item, I didn't put it in the memo, but this is just going to put this out, is the challenges in member services. I would say probably in LACERA and in our country and the world is just COVID fatigue. But in member services, our remote working staff, and everyone who's working remotely is working in isolation. They're working in their homes, their apartments, wherever it can be. With member services call center and outreach staff, they're, the challenge of the work is itself very challenging. It takes a special personality and to be able to be successful in this. So I'm aware of the fatigue of our staff, but they have been fantastic, as shown by the ability and willingness to come to work each day and to work hard each day. And so what we have done in member services is that we have increased the amount of contact time that we have with our staff. We initiated a daily a check-in meeting, 15-minute check-in meeting with each team within the call center, just to say hello, how's everybody doing, so that the team can chat with each other before they start their day. In other areas of member services, we have incorporated that as well. And so we're looking in the next 6 months to make sure that we're in contact with our staff, make sure that all of our staff are have everything they need to remain successful and successfully serve our members. So with that, I am open to any questions. I would be very happy to discuss one of my favorite topics, member services, at length. Trustee Keough, I appreciate all the questions that you've had, and I welcome any other questions.
Thank you. I know that this remote call center setup that we have is new for us, but it's definitely not new for the industry. There's many of industries that have been remote for a very long time. So I'm glad to see us adopting that, and we've learned from the mistakes of many other organizations to do some good stuff here. And I think at the end of the day, this is all going to make us stronger as an organization and continue to do so. So I understand the fatigue is out there, and I appreciate you identifying it and working to resolve it. Those check-in meetings, I'm sure, are just vital for the team itself. And it's very impressive how you're doing the supervision, oversight, and working to train individuals when they are remote. So challenges, but ones that you're overcoming. So I appreciate that. Any questions, comments, thoughts from anybody on the board or any committee member? Thank you very much for the detailed presentation. This was very helpful.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to our privacy incident. And just as a reminder to everybody on the board, we do have a memo that's exempt from public disclosure, so we should refrain from referring to it as part of our discussion. But I will just open it up to staff to see if staff has any specifics, or if anybody from the board or committee has any specific questions. I think the memo was well written and covers a majority of the issues, but I'll open it up to both staff and the board and committee in case there's any questions on this. I see none. I'm in support of the overall concept of the memo, and in addition to the ability to remove items from members' files as long as there's very strict policies around that. So, and I'm sure staff is evaluating that internally. Okay, so we're going to move on to items for staff review.
Yes, we have one
okay.
item to bring back to the full board, the discussion of the IT positions and hiring plan.
Perfect, thank you. And we'll go along to the good of the order in light, since we do have a rather lengthy executive session presentation. I'll just go ahead and open it up to see if anybody has any comments for good of the order.
Yes, Mr. Kehoe, if I may, this is for Dr. Natoya. I know both boards passed a motion regarding working with communities, organizations in an effort to create internships for high school students and college students. But I just wanted to kind of mention to you that we do have internally the staff. Perhaps we should look at the staff that we have and offer internships. For example, Ms. Elsie Gutierrez, she's an attorney. She passed the bar a long time ago, and perhaps she could be evaluated for some type of internship in the legal department. I want to emphasize that I haven't spoken to Ms. Gutierrez. This is not her request. It reminded me because this is the first time that I've seen her in many, many years, and I thought that perhaps I should raise that issue, assuming that she wants it. I have no idea what she does or not, but we do find from time to time, staff has certain skills that perhaps we can help nudge along. Thank you.
Thank you. And we definitely got to get Carly a solution there for her lighting system. We got to get an electrician out there. Let's get a regular light switch in that room. Okay. Any additional comments during good of the order? I see
Actually, she
none.
doesn't need a light switch because I'm using one that's totally battery operated. It sticks on the back of my my laptop. So there are other technical solutions to this.
Oh, yes. Yeah, definitely. There's some unique smart home solutions out there. Okay.
I have 3 teenagers. We can get you hooked up with ring lighting and all that stuff. We got you covered.
Perfect. We'll send the team. Okay, so that brings us to our executive session. So let's go ahead and take a 10-minute bathroom break for everybody, and then we will go into executive session. So at 12:15, we will come back.